record. All right, so welcome to the kind of fitness slash dance slash yoga sector meeting to just really open up the floor to you, but also get an update from Andrea about kind of where we're at from a dial perspective and what that means to you for your businesses specifically as far as group classes go and anything that kind of involves more of a group activity to some degree. So with that, just really quickly to let you know, the Chambers, this is kind of driven by the Small Business Coalition, which is a partnership between the Chambers and the Salida Business Alliance and the Small Business Development Center that's based out of Salida. Of course, that's available all to Chaffee County, and then in conjunction with the Economic Development Center. So it's a lot of different words and a lot of different acronyms for this group, but we've all been working really hard together this past year or so to kind of make sure that our small businesses are taken care of during this time. So opening up meetings like this to you all is really important for us, and we're here to support you. So reach out to us in any way that we can or that you need, I suppose, as things progress. We're definitely a resource and we can be an advocate. We can check in with Andrea for you and kind of do it as a group meeting or in our other meetings that we have throughout the week to make sure we're getting the information out in a timely manner to you all. So with that, I am going to put the agenda in the chat. And then for those listening to this recording later, we're going to do, this was just the kickoff piece. And then Andrea is going to recap the recent state level guidance, revisit requirements for your sector, and then really opening it up, taking a good chunk of the time to open it up to all your questions, specific questions that you have, even if they sound like you maybe already know the answer to them. Utilize Andrea while we have her. And then of course it's helpful to others watching this recording. So Andrea, I will let you take it away.
Great, thank you, Angel. And thanks everyone for taking a half hour out of your day. I know that everyone's so busy these days. Just really wanted, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Andrea Karlstrom, Director of Chaffee County Public Health. It's nice to put some faces with names. Amy, welcome. I'm excited for you in your dance studio. And I really just want to start out by saying thank you to all of you. I mean, I do get the pleasure of working with Jamie and Lori and Angel and Melissa and all of the other fantastic advocates for small businesses in our county on a sometimes a daily basis, which has been such a blessing for me. Really just thank you for your patience, flexibility, understanding. I know we all here in this particular sector meeting have the best interest of health and wellness of our county in mind with the services that we provide. And so I just really want to express my gratitude to all of you. It does appear as though we're in a really steady pattern here in the county and in the state as far as our pandemic response. We're embarking upon what feels like a new COVID-19 chapter, one in which is full of hope and light and life again. And so we do know that, and have always known that once we secured a vaccine, that there would be change on the horizon, change for the good. Vaccines are a key component to our public health response. And I must say, Chaffee County is rocking it for sure. We are currently 4th in the state for vaccination distribution per 100,000 people. And so if you look at the other counties that are 1st and through 3rd, they are counties of less than 1,000 people. It's really easy to get through their population versus our 20,000 plus population. Even though our public health measures are certainly working, our metrics are looking really favorable. A couple of setbacks that we kind of have our eyes on are certainly the variants that we're seeing across the world, but certainly recently, as of a couple Sundays ago here in the county, most specifically related to the DOC. And then what we're seeing as breakthrough cases. So people who are fully vaccinated, they are still getting the virus. And there could be a multitude of different reasons for that, where research is being conducted to figure out kind of the novel aspects of this virus. But it is kind of what we're seeing, also preparing for spring break. I've already heard that our beloved ski resort is getting hammered with visitors and hopefully locals alike. But I heard that they had to kind of do a little bit of damage control yesterday due to the winter weather storm that we received. And then I'm sure that throughout our county, we'll start to see traffic from other counties, from other states, some that may have lifted their restrictions already. And just for us to be aware of that. So we're not out of the woods yet, but certainly in a more hopeful, promising chapter in the future. And as I hope you're aware, we were able to move to level blue last week. I think it was last week. The days kind of fly by for me, so don't hold me accountable to time or what day it is, but we were able to move to blue, and that's really just provides a little bit of minor respite for our business community, but we are working closely with the state to advocate to an even less restrictive level in the future. So with that being said, we're in dial 2.0. That's why we fall within the blue level. There are discussions that 3.0 might launch within the next few weeks, and it's really anyone's guess what that will look like. I am participating in several stakeholder meetings related to that. It may mean that 3.0 restrictions are more of a recommendation than they are a requirement. It may mean that the state backs off on its pandemic response and kind of punts to local public health and to locals. It might mean that the mask mandate is dissolved at the state level, and locals will need to kind of figure out what that means for them. I will say that local public health agencies are pushing back on the governor's office quite a bit in concern that really the mask mandate should to some extent be extended through at least schools being in session to in-person learning. It feels like our state has fought so hard to get kids to in-person learning, and to kind of give up when some schools are just getting back to in-person learning kind of feels like just some irresponsible decision making. We have prioritized in-person learning and keeping our businesses open in our county from the beginning of the pandemic. I know during stay at home, there were a lot of pinch points, frustrations, totally get it. We've never done this before. We've never been in a pandemic, nor have we ever responded and lived through a pandemic. So I just really appreciate everyone's cooperation. So in the blue, we're at 50% capacity still, or 175 people. That excludes staff. So I don't know if we've been fielding a lot of questions regarding whether that includes staff, but it does not. But it does include whichever is fewer. So 50%, 175 cap, not including staff, whichever is fewer. And then, of course, as I know, worked with Marcus, you had a brilliant plan on reopening this past spring on, inherently gyms, fitness facilities have systems in place in which they are tracking which members are coming through the doors, how long are they staying, what activities are they participating in. And so, whenever possible, having a reservation system is extremely helpful. We are aware of several local gym/fitness/recreation outfits that have experienced outbreaks throughout this pandemic. And it was really helpful to have kind of a roster of who was in the facility around the same time as the positive cases. So we have seen outbreaks related to all sectors. Not one sector is exempt here. It's just the way that community spread has worked and how reopening our society has worked. I really do feel, though, that as we learn to live our lives with this virus, rather than have the virus live our lives, we will start to see sort of a new era in which, as long as we're not seeing deaths and hospitalizations, we can maintain being open as long as we continue with some of these guardrails that have proven to be best practices. And then no sharing of equipment. However, you can disinfect and clean, and then pass it along to the next person. That's come up with a couple of the yoga studios on the south end of the county as far as props and that type of thing. And another thing that has popped up is helping members, participants with their poses and with their exercises, so physical touch. And what we're saying, as long as it's consensual, two-way, personal touch, that is fine, as long as it's just a temporary, opportunity to help someone with their form or so forth. Communal gathering spaces really continue to be discouraged. So I know that as we continue to lift restrictions and people want to see each other, they're really excited to catch up in person. And so whenever possible, to dissuade communal spaces is still really helpful. And of course, ventilation, sanitation, and continuing the 5 commitments to containment really, I don't see those alleviating when it comes to people coming to work sick or people participating in activities sick and so forth. For parks and sports facilities, I don't think there's really anyone here related to those activities, but at 25% or 75, whichever is fewer. So again, just that guardrail continues to exist on caps for participants in particular. Whenever possible, having the appropriate signage is important, especially related to the mask mandate. I don't know about you, but I am ready to burn my mask, but the time is not now. And I mean, I can't think of anyone who wants to be over, this controversy of mask wearing more than me. However, it continues to create controversy when people aren't wearing their masks. We get calls, we get complaints. We're trying to be reasonable and take an education, practical approach with all of the sectors in our community. There are going to be times when we make mistakes or the mask is uncomfortable, but we are still in the mask mandate for what it is. The governor extended that another 30 days. So while we are, and we have that leg to stand on, just as a reminder, this excludes children 10 and under. Certainly it completely excludes children 2 and under for safety reasons. It's just recommended for that kind of 3 to 10-year-old child. Also anyone who can't tolerate the mask medically, but that means if you're unconscious, incapacitated, or unable to remove your mask. And so I know a lot of people have kind of thrown the medical card around and have, said that they just can't wear one due to their health conditions. Really, we have to be asking ourselves, are you unconscious because of the mask? Are you incapacitated because of the mask? Or can you just physically not remove your mask when you need to? Of course, we want to be reasonable and practical. And so the temporary removal of a mask just to catch one's breath is certainly, within that realm, or to safely perform an activity. So we know that there are participants in fitness and athletic activities that have had a hard time with this, including managers and supervisors and owners on allowing people to remove their mask. We're on the home stretch. If folks can just adhere to it for just a little longer, I'm hopeful that we will be able to move past kind of the broad brushstroke of everyone having to wear a mask, especially with the adding of vaccinations to our society. But we need to wear the mask whenever feasible. There are so many different products of masks. I'm sure all of you have found the ones that work for you at this time. And certainly we're just talking about indoor public spaces. We're not talking about outdoor spaces. outdoor spaces is just recommended mask wearing, or when you can't promise that you won't come into close contact with someone. If, as we inch toward what will hopefully be a less restrictive environment, our goal truly would be that we have 75 to 100% capacity back again. And that may look a little different for each one of you. The services you provide may fall within a different sector guidance. And so we're just really asking everyone to do their best, the information that we do have at this time, to keep our county safe and to forge through what has been an incredibly tough year. And not to say that we're not going to have challenging chapters in the future, but again, we're hopeful that with the partners that we have, with all of you, we will get through this. So I'm happy to answer any questions, concerns. Feel free to share any themes you've seen along the way. And we really just want to be sure that we're still on an even playing field, despite being a year into this pandemic with changing dynamics, what feels like for the public health system day by day. Hopefully for all of you, it's not as sudden, and that you have kind of a heads up of kind of industry changes and best practices.
I have a question. So our yoga studio is approved to have 9 people, but I'm wondering if that was from when it was less than 50%. So do we have to reapply to change something, or how does that work?
You do not have to reapply. So at this time, you just follow the guidance that's on the state's website with all of the different levels. And so find kind of that sector that fits for you and your yoga classes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. And then as far as props go, so we can disinfect them in between users and bring them out again, though, as long as they're cleaned. Okay.
Yep, definitely. And if you start to get creative as the weather turns nice, or perhaps you end up wanting to have classes, sessions in different facilities or outdoors, just find that sector that works for what you're pulling off. Is it an outdoor event, or is it outdoor recreation? Really just trying to find what maximizes the opportunity in the safest way.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you. And I know I've talked to Amy in the past, just again, trying to be as practical and reasonable with the guidances that we have. Oh, thanks, Jamie, for putting that in the chat. There are so many nuances to sectors and to the services that you all and so many others provide our county. And so, I think, the take home message, well, caps are certainly part of the strategy. Are people able to distance? Are people able to mask? How do you, keep a running tally of who has been in close contact or who has been at your facilities? Just practical sense at this point. We really don't want it to feel like it is, in the penalty box. We're doing everything we can to work with the state to look at the data and to lift restrictions as it makes sense to do so.
Any other questions? I know that there was at one point some frustration because it seemed like we were working hard to make sure masks were staying on in gyms, especially, and other locations where there was group activities happening. And some people would just flat out say they don't do that in other parts of Colorado even. And it was a battle, right, to fight them on it, especially when they're having an elevated heart rate and they're going to be breathing heavier and things like that. And I know that was a battle. So for those of you who had to fight that, thank you. I am a diehard gym goer personally. So I was so grateful for that. Cause it's my therapy. So I can't believe I'm admitting that on this recording, but here we go. Too late now. But yeah, Marcus, any thoughts, or Amy or Roxanne?
Sure. I don't have so much any questions. I mean, we've been in pretty constant contact in terms of getting information. Andrea, thank you for always responding to everything. You're quite honestly the one county employee that always responded to emails in a timely fashion, and I'm sure your inbox was getting blown up over the last year. So for one, I appreciate that. Just making observations, and I'm not levying criticisms anyway at all, just giving you guys some feedback from the day-to-day things that I see, that I deal with, that is, extremely challenging. It's not unworkable, but it's very challenging. And just to speak to some of the requirements and the mask mandates, at times it feels like I've been an extension of the state, like I'm an agent of the state. I'm an extension of public health, that you guys want people to do stuff and it's up to me to make them do stuff. And as a business owner who wants people to come in the gym, who I need people to spend money in the gym because January 1st, the assessor sent me 100% tax bill for last year. It's quite a balancing act to try and figure this stuff out. So that has probably been the most challenging part of what we've had to do. Some of the dial that we've moved to that you mentioned to 2.0, and if you have any influence in the future, or if they ask you for feedback at the state level, some of the things seem like they're very much geared towards high level metropolitan areas in the Front Range specifically. So when I go from orange or yellow or orange to blue to green, and it says 50% or, and the or is some other number, but my 50% is always lower than that number, then even though as we're getting better, the restrictions don't change for what we do. And that's a big point of contention for membership, for people to come back. We run the Silver Sneaker program, we run Silver and Fit, we run Active and Fit, which is usually of people of Medicare age. So we have 500 or more of them signed up at this facility. We have to run classes. We do a number of things for the senior population. As you said, Chaffee's been very good at rolling out the vaccine. I'm having them come back by the droves because they're vaccinated now and they feel good about it, but I can't do anything else. I can't have an expanded class, even if 100% of them were vaccinated. That's really one of the struggles that we're dealing with right now, is I have people that feel good about coming back now that I can't accommodate, even as we get better in our numbers and even as we get farther along on the dial, so to speak. So that's been a pretty big challenge for small facilities without large occupant loads. And then even I'm discovering, we went back and forth a number of times building this facility that I'm at now with the fire department and the fire marshal at the time, of how do we categorize this facility, which then leads to the occupant load, not knowing that someday the occupant load would determine what I can and can't do. And so there's different rooms in my facility with different occupant loads, which sometimes the wheel then affects one part of the gym, but not the other. So it's hard to explain the consistency or lack thereof in some cases. So that's, probably on the level of the biggest challenges that we have. I do see a number of people. We have families as large as 6 that sign up at the gym here. I have people coming in from out of county that are working on the new housing plant here. So I have dirt crews and concrete crews and steel crews that'll bring in 20, 30 guys that all stay together in a hotel room and all want to come to the gym and work out. And it's challenging for me to try and manage the 1 hour of their life they're in the gym with restrictions when they're only here for a week or 2 and then they move on. So it's a very much dynamic situation. It's very not black and white for what we do. It's very much gray, in trying to, put things out there and work with people when the rest of their life is not revolved around any type of restriction, just based on their background, the industry they're in, and where they're from.
I appreciate that. And sorry, Wendell, I'll just say that feedback is extremely valuable, and I will advocate for those very comments at tomorrow's CDPHE meetings.
Yeah, Andrew, I was going to follow up on that. I think at one point you mentioned they weren't, granting variances, but, to Marcus's point, speaking as a senior as well, if you've got a class that is 100% vaccinated, why not begin to push the envelope and make that the exception that kind of, proves the rule. So, can you put that one forward? And then secondly, back to Marcus. Marcus, the county's probably going to receive some CARES money that they're going to continue. And I don't know if you took advantage of any of the PPL and that kind of thing, but if you had one thing to ask the county commissioners to do, given your less than 100% tax rebate, what would it be? You know, if they could give you some relief for last year, what would be the one thing?
So interesting enough, throughout all of this, because people are trying to get out of the cities, the property values here have gone up. So we see increases in commercial values, which I agree with. I'm thankful that my business is worth more today than it was at the start of the pandemic, which is strange. The side that is challenging is the use tax side of things. So for those that don't know, is the use tax taxes your equipment that you use to generate revenue. And if, you know, for our instance, we were closed for 3 months out of last year. So we were not allowed to even use 50% of it or 30% or whatever the loads are approved to generate revenue. That's the hard one to swallow. So you're paying 100% equipment tax on equipment that you can't use or can't use fully, which is different than property tax. And that's what I would say that the commissioners in certain circumstances may want to look at and may want to think about in terms of the tax question.
Yeah. So, and that's a county tax, from what I understand. That's county only. So they can
Correct.
address that. Okay. I think we should take that forward, or maybe have a sidebar, Andrea, with Greg. But I think that's a legitimate, you know, request that's kind of come to our attention.
I really appreciate that. Yep, let's be sure to do that.
Roxanne, do you have any?
Well, I did want to second what Marcus just said. I think that's a huge thing, being levied for those equipment taxes. So I really appreciate him bringing that up. Other than that, I would just say that in this final stretch of dealing with masks, because we as a club have really aimed for 100% mask compliance, which at time has led to losing quite a bit of members. But we really wanted to stick with public health policy along the way. There's two things that we're seeing come up. One is somebody coming in and saying they're vaccinated, so they no longer want to wear a mask. And we are working on educating the public until, you know, there's a greater percentage. We're all still in this together. And then the second thing is, on an ongoing basis, saying to wear a mask when feasible has been very difficult and a very gray area for us, because a lot of people feel like for it to be feasible for them, they do need to pull it down quite a bit. And I know we're in the final stretch of this, but I would just love to hear any guidance or insight on how to handle that feasibility issue, which is a gray area. And then also would love to hear from you, Andrea, and public health on people wanting to at least wear the mask underneath their nose. And I just want to say too, thank you to all of you. And I can't wait for this to be over and to return to regular operations. But we are also very committed to seeing this out correctly at our business.
I really appreciate that. And I know everyone's doing their best with the skills and the resources and the guidance and the signage and messaging that we have. To answer, life post-vaccination has come up in almost every single meeting that I've been part of in the last month or so. There's just so many unknowns with the variant, with breakthrough cases, with the life cycle of this virus, et cetera. And so, until we really do start to feel like we're making strides with herd immunity or even close to herd immunity, or that we have successfully vaccinated and protected our highest risk individuals, then, coming up with creative ways to explain why we're still wearing masks is definitely something at the top of our radar. I think if the mask mandate goes away, so does mask wearing for many, many people. And so the longer that we can kind of keep this tiger tame, the better, just so that it gives us more time to understand the impact that this virus is having. So actually my 3 o'clock is with CDPHE's incident commander, in which we kind of get a taste of the topics for this week, this week's round of meetings. I know that they are listening to us and taking into consideration our feedback. So we'll continue to make sure that we need stronger messaging around mask wearing feasibility, mask wearing post-vaccination, maybe some language around being half masked and what that, presents itself with. Feel free after this meeting to take some time to think about other areas that you need support on, and just shoot me an email. And I'm happy, if I don't have the answers, I can add them to sort of the hot topics that we're navigating. We're always hoping that the CDC and CDPHE are going to come through for us, but it seems like Chaffee County is always one step ahead of identifying a potential problem. And I'd like to think that we're also part of the solution too. So I really appreciate that feedback.
Great. Thanks, Andrea. And then just the only other thing I think for the request to CDPHE would be the, levels, capacity levels, to Marcus's point and other points that affect us, right? Not 250 plus or whatever those numbers look like, much smaller numbers, since I don't think most of our restaurants or small businesses even seat that many people.
Yeah, I know, Angela, you and I were part of a chat a couple of weeks ago, in which, is there any possibility to say, well, in counties that are X amount of population size, or that maybe do submit a variance, whatever it takes to say, well, you're at 75% capacity or 85, or, I mean, dare I say 100, but you know what I mean when I say, like, hey, give us a little bit of credit here that we know our small community and we know how to protect it.
Yes, 100%. I mean, not like that, but yes, agreed. Thank you. Good. I know you have to go to your 3 o'clock, Andrea. Does anybody have any other questions for her while we have her on here? Otherwise, we can wrap this up in a minute. Everyone's good. All right. Thanks, Andrea. Thanks for being here, everyone. Appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. Thanks. See ya.